The battle began in the Titan Nebula, where space itself glowed with strange colors and energy storms hid both fleets from normal sensors. Supreme Commander Zix had chosen this place because he thought it would confuse the primitive human ships. The nebula's electromagnetic interference would make their crude computers useless. He was wrong. All human ships. This is Admiral Park. Came the transmission to the 48 junk vessels. Execute plan scrapyard. Han Sol smiled at the code name. For 50 years, the aliens had called human ships junk and scrap. Now they would learn what that scrap could really do. Adam 7, you know what to do. Yes, Captain. Beginning electromagnetic masking. All ships are now invisible to Vex sensors. The human fleet vanished into the nebula's natural interference. To the Vex ships, it looked like the humans had simply disappeared. Where did they go? Demanded Supreme Commander Zix. Unknown, sir, replied his sensor officer. The nebula is blocking our scanners. Then we hunt them down ship by ship, spread the fleet out, find them. It was exactly what the humans wanted. The first Vex ship to die never saw what killed it. The UTS Endurance, looking like a broken cargo hauler, emerged from the energy storm and fired its railguns. The crystal ship exploded before it could send a warning. The second ship lasted long enough to scream a message. Human ship. They're using the nebula against us. But by then it was too late. The UTS Persistence appeared behind a group of Vex cruisers. Its ugly hull looked like it might fall apart, but its weapons worked perfectly. 3 more crystal ships became space dust. This is impossible, Zix shouted. How are they moving through the interference? On the Defiance, Mina was having the time of her life. Captain, our systems are designed for this. While their fancy crystal technology is confused by the electromagnetic storms, our crude metal computers are working perfectly. The human ships moved through the nebula like they owned it. They appeared, fired, and vanished before the Vex could respond. Each ugly vessel fought like a ghost, striking from nowhere and disappearing into the energy storms. Captain Haywan of the Resilience contacted the fleet. This is beautiful. Their shields can't track our metal projectiles through the interference. Their crystal hulls shatter like glass when we hit them, added Commander Boram of the Persistence. The Vex fleet was in chaos. Their beautiful ships were designed for clean, long-range battles in open space. They had never fought an enemy that used the environment as a weapon. All ships, form defensive positions, Zix ordered. Concentrate fire on any human vessel you see? But the humans weren't fighting the way the Vex expected. When 50 crystal ships surrounded the UTS Determination, the ugly human vessel didn't try to run or hide. Instead, it charged straight into the middle of them. Open fire, Captain Jun-Ho of the Determination shouted. Show them what 50 years of waiting looks like. The Determination's armor began glowing as dozens of energy beams hit it. But instead of being destroyed, the ship got stronger. Its adaptive armor absorbed the energy and converted it to power. At the same time, the ship's railguns fired in all directions. Chunks of metal moving at incredible speeds punched through crystal hulls like they were made of soap bubbles. In 30 seconds, the Determination destroyed 15 Vex ships while taking no damage at all. Impossible, screamed a Vex captain. How can crude metal defeat crystal perfection? The answer came from Adam 7, broadcasting on all frequencies. Because crude metal that works is better than perfect crystal that breaks. The tide of battle turned completely. The human ships stopped hiding and began hunting. They moved in groups, supporting each other with tactics no alien had ever seen. When Vex ships tried to run, the humans chased them down. When they tried to fight, the humans overwhelmed them. When they tried to use their advanced technology, the humans turned it against them. Mina had figured out how to hack Vex crystal computers during battle. Their systems are too perfect, she explained to Han Sol. They can't adapt when something unexpected happens. Our messy, crude programming confuses them completely. The UTS Defiance led the final assault on Zix's flagship. The massive crystal ship was 10 times bigger than the ugly human vessel, but size didn't matter anymore. Supreme Commander, Han Sol broadcast, this is your last chance to surrender. Never, Zix replied. Vex crystal is eternal. Your primitive metal cannot defeat the perfection of our technology. Adam 7, Han Sol said sadly. Show him how wrong he is. The Defiance fired all of its railguns at once. 6 streams of metal slugs hit the Crystal flagship from different angles. The beautiful, perfect ship that had never been damaged cracked like an egg and broke apart. Supreme Commander Zix's last transmission was a whisper. How did metal defeat crystal? When the battle ended, 47 Vex ships remained out of 1,000. They were all damaged and begging for mercy. Please. One captain transmitted, we yield, we surrender completely. Admiral Park's voice answered from her command station. Take your ships and go home. Tell your empire that humans are not primitive, we just build things differently. What are you? The Vex captain asked. We are engineers, Park replied. We make things that work, even when they shouldn't. Especially when they shouldn't. As the surviving Vex ships limped away, the alien observers who had watched the battle sat in stunned silence. Did that really happen? Asked a Helix commander. 48 human ships just destroyed nearly 1,000 Vex vessels, replied a quantum observer. Ships that looked like junk defeated the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. Ambassador Yu Jin of the Keth Alliance was thinking hard. We have been fools, she said to her crew. We looked at human ships and saw ugliness. We should have looked closer and seen genius. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light. Within hours, every alien civilization knew what had happened. In the Titan Nebula, humanity, the species everyone had ignored and laughed at, had just won the greatest military victory in galactic history, with ships that looked like they were built from garbage. On the Defiance, Han Sol stood in the observation deck looking out at his fleet. 48 ugly ships that had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Adam 7, he said. How do you feel? I feel, the AI replied, like we have finally shown the galaxy what human engineering can accomplish when we stop trying to impress people and start trying to win. And what's that? That the best weapon is not the prettiest one, Captain. It's the one that works when everything else fails. Mina joined Han Sol at the window. So what happens now? Now, Han Sol said, watching as repair ships came to fix the battle damage on his ugly, powerful vessel. The galaxy learns to respect junk that fights back. The human ships began their journey home, looking like floating scrap metal but moving, like the most advanced warships in known space. Behind them, they left a debris field of crystal ships and the wreckage of alien assumptions about human capabilities. The age of underestimating humanity was over. The age of fearing what looked like junk had begun, and in the depths of space, other human ships that had been hiding for decades began powering up their engines, ready to reveal that the Defiance and her sisters were just the beginning of what human engineering could accomplish. The galaxy would never be the same. The year was 2387, and Captain Li Dongwu stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the stars through the big front window. His ship was called the Indomitable Spirit, and it looked nothing like the huge war machines that ruled the galaxy. Where other ships were giant and covered in weapons, his ship was smaller and looked almost plain. Captain, said Commander Park So-Young, walking up to him with a data pad in her hands. We're getting close to the border between Crimson and Nova Space. Lee nodded. He was a tall man with kind eyes, but those who knew him well could see the steel underneath. How are our systems, Taeho? He called to his chief engineer. Kim Taeho looked up from his control panel, wiping grease from his hands. All good, Captain. The new quantum disruption system is ready if we need it. Let's hope we don't, Lee said quietly. 3 months ago, humanity had joined the Galactic Council. It was a big day for Earth, but most of the galaxy didn't care. Humans were new, small, and came from a planet that other species called too dangerous to live on. Most aliens thought humans were weak because they didn't have natural armor, claws, or special powers. The galaxy was ruled by 2 big empires. The Crimson Empire was made up of large reptile-like beings who loved to fight. They had red scales and were taller than humans. Their ships were covered in spikes and weapons painted blood red to scare their enemies. The Nova Empire was different. They were made of living crystal and thought they were smarter than everyone else. Their ships were white and smooth, filled with the most advanced technology in the galaxy. They used their minds to control their machines and looked down on species that still used their hands. Both empires had been fighting each other for hundreds of years. The space between their territories was dangerous, full of patrol ships and hidden weapons. Most species went around this area, adding weeks to their travel time, but humanity needed to go through. Earth was running low on rare metals needed for their new spaceships. The shortest path to the mining worlds went right through the contested zone between the two empires. "Sir," said Lieutenant Commander Yoon Ji-hai from the weapons station, "we're receiving a message from the Crimson Border Patrol." "Put it on screen," Lee ordered. The main screen flickered and the ugly face of a crimson warrior appeared. His red scales were scratched from many battles, and his yellow eyes showed nothing but hate. This was Captain Mordak, commander of the Yite patrol ship Bloodfang. "Human vessel," Mordak growled, his voice like rocks grinding together. "You are in Crimson space. Turn around and go back to your little planet." Lee stepped forward. "This is Captain Lee Dongwoo of the Earthship Indomitable, Spirit. We have permission from the Galactic Council to pass through this area. We're not looking for trouble." Mordak laughed, a horrible sound. "Permission? The Council has no power here. This is our space, won't you humans? Go home before we make you." Behind Mordak, other Crimson warriors could be seen preparing weapons. Their ship was 3 times larger than the Indomitable Spirit, and covered in missile pods and energy cannons. "We're just passing through," Lee said calmly. "We don't want to fight." "All humans are cowards," Mordak spit. "Your species is soft and weak. You have no claws, no armor, no real weapons. How did you even get into space?" On the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, the crew listened quietly. Sergeant Major Kang Min-soo, head of the ship's Marines, cracked his knuckles. "Captain, want me to show him how soft we are?" Lee held up his hand for silence. He knew his crew was angry, but starting a fight now would only make things worse for humanity. Meanwhile, far away in Nova space, High Magistrate Zilandra was watching the same conversation through her spy networks. She was a beautiful being made of blue crystal, her body reflecting light in rainbow patterns. But her mind was cold and calculating. "Interesting," she said to her assistant. "The humans are trying to cross the war zone. How foolish." "Should we help them, Magistrate?" asked her aide. "No," Zilandra replied. "Let the Crimson deal with them. We will learn from what happens." Back in the contested zone, Mordak was getting more angry. "You have 10 minutes to turn around, humans. After that, we will treat you as enemies." The screen went black. "Well," said Park So-young. "That went well." Lee sat down in his captain's chair. "What do our sensors show?" 3 Crimson patrol ships," reported Yoon Ji-hai. "All smaller than their main battleships, but still bigger than us. They're moving to surround us." "Captain," said Kim Tae-ho, "I could power up the new systems. Give them a little surprise." "Not yet," Lee said. "Let's see what they do first." Dr. Lim Hae-won, the ship's scientist who studied alien behavior, spoke up from her station. "Captain, the Crimson respect strength above all else. If we run, they'll see us as prey. If we stay, they might respect us enough to let us pass. And if they attack?" asked Choi Sung-min, Lee's second in command. "Then we show them what humans are really like," Lee said quietly. The bridge fell silent. Every human on the ship knew their species had a reputation for being peaceful. What the aliens didn't know was that humans had survived on Earth by being the best hunters and fighters the planet had ever seen. They had just learned to control that side of themselves. "Sir," said Lieutenant Park Boram from Communications, "I'm picking up chatter from the Crimson ships. They're laughing about us." "What are they saying?" Lee asked. "They're making bets on how fast we'll run away. Some think we'll beg for mercy." Kang Min-soo stood up from his station. "Captain, my Marines are ready if you give the word." Lee looked around his bridge at his crew. These men and women had volunteered for the most dangerous mission humanity had ever tried. They knew they might not come home, but they also knew that how they acted today would decide how the galaxy saw their species forever. "All stations, prepare for possible combat," Lee ordered. "But nobody fires unless I give the order." The crew moved quickly to their battle positions. The indomitable spirit might look small and weak, but hidden inside its simple hull were weapons and systems that no alien had ever seen before. "Crimson ships are moving closer," reported Yunji-Hai. "They're charging their weapons." "Let them come," Lee said. "It's time the galaxy learned what humans are really made of." In the distance, Captain Mordak was preparing to teach these soft humans a lesson they would never forget. He had no idea that he was about to become the first alien to discover why humanity had become the top predator on the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. The stage was set for a battle that would change everything. The 10 minutes passed like hours. Captain Lee Dong-woo watched the main screen as 3 Crimson patrol ships moved into attack formation around the indomitable spirit. Each enemy ship was twice the size of his vessel, their hulls bristling with energy weapons that glowed red in the darkness of space. "Time's up, humans," came Mordak's voice over the radio. "You had your chance to run. Now you die like the weak creatures you are." "All ships, open fire," Mordak roared to his fleet. The space around the indomitable spirit lit up with deadly energy beams. Red lasers and plasma bolts struck the human ship from 3 directions. The bridge shook, and sparks flew from some control panels. "Shields holding at 90%, reported Lieutenant Commander Yunji-Hai calmly. "Hull armor is adapting to their weapon frequencies." Captain Mordak stared at his tactical display in confusion. His weapons should have torn through the small human ship like paper. Instead, the energy readings showed something impossible. "What is this?" he growled. "Fire again, more power." The Crimson ships fired a second wave of attacks, putting more energy into their weapons. But something strange was happening to the human ship. Where the energy beams hit, the metal hull seemed to shimmer and change color. It was learning from each attack, becoming stronger. On the bridge of the indomitable spirit, Chief Engineer Kim Tae-ho smiled as he watched his displays. "Adaptive armor is working perfectly, Captain. Every shot they fire makes us harder to hurt." Lee nodded. The adaptive armor was one of humanity's secret weapons. Made from a special metal that could change its structure, it learned from damage and became resistant to the same attacks. It was something no other species had ever thought to create. "Sir," said Commander Park So-young, "should we return fire?" "Not with energy weapons," Lee replied. "Yoon, prepare the kinetic cannons." Yoon Ji-Hai's hands moved over her controls. "Kinetic cannons loaded and ready, Captain. Quantum phase systems online." The Crimson Warriors had never heard of kinetic cannons. Most space battles were fought with energy weapons, lasers, plasma, and particle beams. Physical projectiles were considered old-fashioned and useless against modern shields. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Fire," Lee ordered quietly. The indomitable spirit didn't flash with bright energy beams. Instead, it launched small metal projectiles at incredible speed. These weren't ordinary bullets. They were accelerated to nearly the speed of light by human technology. But that wasn't the most deadly part. As the projectiles flew through space, Kim Tae-ho's quantum disruption system activated. The metal bullets began to phase in and out of normal space, becoming ghost-like as they passed through the Crimson shields as if they weren't there. The first projectile hit Mordak's ship in the engine section. The small piece of metal, moving, at incredible speed punched through the hull like it was made of paper. It tore through 3 decks before exploding inside the ship's power core. "What was that?" Mordak screamed as his ship shook violently. "How did they get through our shields?" Before anyone could answer, 2 more kinetic projectiles hit his ship. The blood fang began to break apart as explosions ripped through its interior. The other 2 Crimson ships tried to understand what was happening. Their sensors couldn't track the human weapons properly. The projectiles seemed to appear and disappear, phasing through their shields and armor as if they were ghosts. "Impossible!" shouted Captain Rektar from the second Crimson ship. "Nothing can pass through our shields." "Fire everything," ordered Captain Vexmore from the third ship. Destroy them before they attack us. Both remaining Crimson ships opened fire with all their weapons. The space around the indomitable spirit became a storm of red energy. But the human ship's adaptive armor had learned from the first attacks. Now it absorbed most of the energy and converted it into power for the ship's systems. Their attacks are actually making us stronger, Kim Tae-ho reported with a grin. Should I thank them? Thank them with more kinetic rounds, Lee replied. Yoon Ji-hai targeted the second Crimson ship. Firing, the indomitable spirit launched another salvo of phase-shifted projectiles. Captain Rektar watched in horror as his shields did nothing to stop the incoming attack. The kinetic rounds passed through his defenses and struck his ship's weapon systems. The explosions that followed tore his ship in half. Captain Vexmore, commanding the last Crimson ship, finally understood the terrible truth. These humans weren't fighting like civilized beings. They used weapons that ignored shields and armor that got stronger from being attacked. This wasn't how space battles were supposed to work. Retreat, he ordered his crew. Send a message to command. Tell them the humans have weapons we've never seen before. But it was too late. The indomitable spirit had already fired its third. Salvo Sergeant Major Kang Min-soo watched from his station as the last Crimson ship tried to escape. Permission to board their ship, Captain. We could take prisoners. Negative, Lee replied. We're not here to capture anyone. We're here to send a message. The final kinetic projectiles struck Captain Vexmore's ship just as it tried to jump, to faster-than-light speed. The quantum-phased rounds disrupted the ship's jump drive, causing a massive explosion that lit up the dark space like a small sun. In less than 5 minutes, 3 Crimson patrol ships had been completely destroyed. The bridge of the indomitable spirit was quiet. The crew had just won their first space battle, but there was no celebration. They knew this was only the beginning. Damage report, Lee ordered. Hull armor at full strength, reported Kim Tae-ho. Actually, it's stronger than when we started. The Crimson attacks helped it adapt. Any casualties? None, sir. A few minor injuries from when the bridge shook, but nothing serious. Lee nodded and turned to his communications officer. Boram, are you picking up any distress signals? Lieutenant Park Boram checked her instruments. 1 weak signal from the wreckage of the first ship. Someone survived the explosion. Can you make out what they're saying? Boram listened carefully to the alien words coming through the static. Her face went pale. Sir, he's sending a warning message to the Crimson Empire. He's telling them that humans don't fight like anyone else. He says we don't fight like civilized beings. Commander Park So-young looked at the debris floating around their ship. Are we civilized, Captain? Lee was quiet for a moment. We're human, he said finally. We do what we have to do to survive. Dr. Lim Hae-won spoke up from her science station. Captain, our sensors are detecting other ships in the area. They're staying far away, but they're watching us. Nova ships? Most likely. They probably saw the whole battle. Lee sat back in his captain's chair. The Nova Empire would now know that humans were more dangerous than they looked. Word would spread through the galaxy that the small, weak species from Earth had destroyed 3 Crimson warships without taking any damage. Set course for the Nova border, Lee ordered. Let's see what the Crystal people think of us now. As the indomitable spirit moved deeper into contested space, Captain Mordak's final transmission continued to broadcast from the wreckage of his ship. His dying words would soon reach Crimson Command, warning them about the terrible new threat that had entered the galaxy. But it was already too late. Humanity had fired its first shot in what would become the most important war in galactic history, and they had won it in a way that would give both empires nightmares for years to come. The age of human warfare had begun. General Korvash of the Crimson Empire had never thought he would sit at the same table as a Nova leader. The two empires had been enemies for 300 years. But today, he faced Archon Veltara across a holographic conference table, both of them united by something stronger than their hatred for each other. Fear. The humans destroyed 5 more of my ships yesterday, Korvash growled, his red scales darkening with anger. They came out of nowhere, hit us with those ghost weapons, and vanished before we could fight back. Veltara's crystal body pulsed with blue light. They sent a virus into our main computer network on Proxima Station. It turned our own defense grid against us. 50 ships destroyed by our own weapons. Both commanders looked at the holographic display floating between them. It showed the location of the human ship Indomitable Spirit as it moved through their space like a hunting predator. One ship, Korvash said quietly. One single ship is making our empires look like fools. It's not just a ship, Veltara replied. Our scientists have been studying the wreckage from their attacks. The humans aren't using normal technology. Their ship learns and adapts like a living creature. Their weapons exist in multiple dimensions at once. Their computer viruses evolve faster than we can stop them. How is this possible? Korvash demanded. They're a young species. They've only been in space for 50 years. That's exactly why they're so dangerous, Veltara said. They're not limited by the rules the rest of us follow. They fight like wild animals, but with weapons more advanced than anything we've seen. On the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, Captain Lee Dong-woo was reading reports from Earth. The news wasn't good. Sir, said Lieutenant Park Bo-ram, we're receiving messages from both the Crimson and Nova empires. They're demanding that Earth surrender our ship and all our crew for trial. What does Earth Command say? Lee asked. Commander Park So-young handed him a datapad. Admiral Won Kyung-soo says to keep doing what we're doing. Earth is preparing for war, but they need us to buy them time. Lee nodded. He had expected this. Earth had known that sending humans into alien space would eventually lead to conflict. But they needed to test their new weapons and show the galaxy that humanity couldn't be pushed around. Captain, called Kim Tae-ho from his engineering station, I'm detecting a massive fleet heading our way. 200 ships mixed Crimson and Nova. The bridge fell silent. 200 ships was more than either empire usually sent to major battles. This was their entire combined fleet. They're really working together, whispered Dr. Lim Hae-won. I never thought I'd see the day. Where are they meeting us? Lee asked. The Titan asteroid field, reported Yoon Ji-hai. Perfect place for an ambush. Lee smiled grimly. Or perfect place for us to show them what humans are really capable of. Set course for the asteroid field. It's time to end this. 3 days later, the combined fleet of Crimson and Nova ships waited in the Titan asteroid field. General Korvash commanded from his massive battleship Eternal War, while Archon Veltara coordinated from her crystal dreadnought Perfect Order. 200 of our best ships against one human vessel, Korvash said over the comm. This should be easy. Don't underestimate them, Veltara warned. They've surprised us before. Not this time. We have them surrounded. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The Indomitable Spirit dropped out of faster-than-light travel right in the middle of the alien fleet. Immediately it was surrounded by massive warships on all sides. Human vessel, General Korvash transmitted. You are outnumbered, 200 to 1. Surrender now, and we might let some of your crew live. Captain Lee stood on his bridge looking at the display showing enemy ships in every direction. His crew was calm, ready for battle. General Korvash, Lee replied, thank you for bringing your entire fleet to one place. It saves us the trouble of hunting you down one by one. You're insane, Korvash roared. Fire! All ships, destroy them! The asteroid field lit up like a star as 200 alien ships opened fire at once. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and missiles filled the space. Around the human ship, the Indomitable Spirit disappeared in a cloud of explosions and light. Did we get them? Asked a Crimson captain. The smoke cleared, and the human ship was still there. Its adaptive armor had absorbed most of the damage and was already repairing itself. Impossible, whispered Archon Veltara. Captain Lee's voice came over the comm, calm and deadly. Our turn. What happened next would be remembered as the most terrifying display of human warfare ever seen. The Indomitable Spirit released clouds of small objects that spread throughout the asteroid field. At first they looked harmless, just tiny metallic dots floating in space. What are those? Demanded Korvash. Unknown, reported his tactical officer. They're too small to be weapons. But the dots began to change. They attached themselves, to destroyed pieces of alien ships and started building. In minutes, they had constructed dozens of small fighter craft from the wreckage of the alien fleet's own missiles. Reaper drones, Kim Tae-ho explained to his captain. Self-replicating, fighters that use enemy wreckage as building material. The newly built fighters attacked the alien fleet from all directions. But these weren't normal fighters. They were controlled by human AI that learned from every battle. They dodged alien weapons with impossible skill and struck with precision that no living pilot could match. "They're using our own destroyed weapons against us," a Nova captain screamed over the comm. But that was just the beginning. The indomitable spirit fired something new. Weapons that looked like small black spheres. "Gravity bombs," Yoon Ji-hai announced as she targeted the enemy formation. The spheres exploded into miniature black holes that consumed everything around them. Entire groups of alien ships were pulled into the artificial singularities and crushed into nothing. "This is against the laws of war," Veltara transmitted. "Gravity weapons are forbidden." "We never signed your laws," Lee replied coldly. The human ship then did something that froze the blood of every alien warrior. It began using the asteroids themselves as weapons, accelerating massive rocks to incredible speeds and hurling them at the enemy fleet. "They're throwing mountains at us!" a Crimson pilot screamed. But the most terrifying part was what the humans did to enemy communications. They hacked into the alien radio networks and began broadcasting the death screams of destroyed crews to all the surviving ships. The psychological effect was devastating. "Turn off the comm," Korvash ordered, but it was too late. His own crew could hear their comrades dying in horrible ways. Within 1 hour, 183 alien ships had been destroyed. The survivors tried to escape, but many found their own navigation systems turned against them by human computer viruses. General Korvash's ship was one of the few that managed to retreat. As he limped away, he sent a final message to both empires. "They're not just warriors. They're demons. They use our own weapons, our own technology, even our own dead against us. Nothing in the galaxy can stop them." The battle was over. The combined might of both empires had been crushed by a single human ship. On the bridge of the indomitable spirit, the crew watched the enemy flee. "Damage report," Lee ordered. "Minor hull scratches," Kim Tae-ho reported. "The adaptive armor actually made us stronger. We're in better condition now than when we started." "Any casualties?" "None, sir." Lee nodded and turned to his communications officer. "Boram, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the galaxy knows what humans can do now." The age of human dominance had begun. 6 months after the Battle of Titan asteroid field, the galaxy had changed forever. Ambassador Han Soo-jin walked through the halls of the Galactic Council building, and everywhere she went, alien delegates stepped aside and bowed their heads. The small human woman with kind eyes had become one of the most feared people in known space, not because of anything she had done, but because of what her species could do. Ambassador Han called Council Speaker Thex Mori, a tall alien with purple skin and 4 arms. "Please, we must talk." Han Soo-jin smiled politely. "Of course, Speaker. What can I do for you?" Thex Mori led her to a private meeting room where dozens of alien leaders waited. They represented hundreds of species from across the galaxy, all looking nervous and frightened. "Ambassador," Thex Mori began carefully, "we need to discuss the recent events." Han knew what he meant. Word of the human victory had spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The story grew with each telling, how a single human ship had destroyed nearly 200 alien vessels without taking any real damage. "What would you like to know?" Han asked. A delegate from the Spiral Coalition spoke up. "Is it true that your ship used gravity weapons?" "Yes." "And that it turned enemy technology against them?" "Yes." "And that it built fighters from wreckage during the battle?" "Also, yes." The room fell silent. These were weapons and tactics that violated dozens of galactic warfare treaties. But Earth had never signed those treaties. "Ambassador," said a representative from the Outer Rim worlds, "our governments are concerned. How many ships like the indomitable spirit does Earth possess?" Han smiled. Would you like the truth, or would you prefer to guess? The truth, please. As of today, Earth has completed construction on 57 vessels similar to the Indomitable Spirit. We have plans for 300 more. The aliens looked sick. If one human ship could destroy 200 enemy vessels, what could 57 do? What could 300 do? But we're not here to threaten anyone, Han continued. We're here to offer protection. Protection? Asked Thex Mori. The galaxy is a dangerous place, pirates, raiders, rogue empires. Earth is willing to provide security services to any world that requests our help. What she didn't say was that, after the Battle of Titan, dozens of smaller species had already contacted Earth begging for human protection. The galaxy's bullies had learned to fear humanity, and their former victims wanted humans as allies. Meanwhile, in the ruins of what used to be the Crimson Empire's capital, Survivor Admiral Zektoth sat in the remains of his command center. Half his fleet was gone, destroyed by human weapons that seemed to come from nightmares. Sir, said his aide, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 Crimson colonies. They want to join the human sphere of influence. Zektoth wasn't surprised. After the humans had demonstrated their power, many worlds had decided they'd rather be protected by Earth than destroyed by Earth. What about our remaining fleet, he asked. Admiral, most of our captains are refusing to fight humans. They've seen the battle recordings. They know what happened to our ships. Zektoth nodded. Sadly, the Crimson Empire had been built on fear and strength. Now that humanity had shown they were stronger, the Empire was falling apart. On the crystal world of Nova Prime, Magistrate Prima Lixara stood in the ruins of her research facility. The human computer virus had spread through their entire network, turning their most advanced technology into scrap metal. How many systems are still infected, she asked her technicians. 60% of our computer networks, Magistrate. The human virus adapts faster than we can clean it out. And our fleet? We have 40 ships left that are completely human virus-free. The rest are either destroyed or too infected to use safely. Lixara felt her crystal body dim with despair. The Nova Empire had prided itself on technological superiority. Now they were afraid to use their own computers. Magistrate, said her aide, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. They're offering to help clean the virus from our systems. In exchange for what? A peace treaty and technology sharing agreement. Lixara laughed bitterly. The humans were offering to fix the very problem they had created. But what choice did she have? Back on Earth, President Sim Yun-ho stood on the balcony of his office, looking up at the sky. Somewhere up there, 57 human warships were patrolling the galaxy, establishing humanity as the new dominant power. Sir, said his aide, we're receiving requests for human protection from over 200 worlds. The Galactic Council wants to make Earth a permanent member with full veto power. And the Crimson and Nova Empires? Both have requested peace. Negotiations. They're offering tribute payments and territorial concessions. President Sim smiled. 6 months ago, humanity had been a small, unknown species on the edge of the galaxy. Now they were the apex predators of space. What about Captain Lee and the Indomitable Spirit, he asked. Still on patrol, sir. The galaxy seems much more peaceful when they know he's out there. On the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, Captain Lee Dongwu sat in his command chair reading reports from across the galaxy. Pirate attacks were down 90%. Territorial disputes were being settled peacefully. Even the slave markets that had operated for centuries were shutting down. Nobody wanted to risk drawing human attention. Captain, said Commander Park So-young, we're receiving a distress call from the Kepler system. Raiders are attacking civilian ships. Lee smiled grimly. Set course for Kepler. Let's remind the galaxy why it's better to be peaceful. As the Indomitable Spirit jumped to faster than light speed, its crew prepared for another demonstration of human power. They had become the galaxy's police force, judge, and executioner all in one. You know, said Kim Tae-ho as he checked his weapon systems, I almost feel sorry for anyone stupid enough to still be causing trouble. Almost, agreed Yoon Ji-hai. Dr. Lim Hai-wan looked up from her xenobiology studies. The galaxy is learning to fear us. Is that what we wanted? Captain Lee was quiet for a moment. "Fear keeps the peace," he said finally. "But we need to be careful. Power corrupts, and we have more power than any species has ever had." "So what do we do?" asked Choi Sung-min. "We remember that we're human," Lee replied. "We protect the innocent, punish the guilty, and try not to become the monsters that the galaxy fears we might be." Lieutenant Park Boram spoke up from her station. "Sir, the raiders in the Kepler system just received word that we're coming. They're already retreating." "Good," Lee said. "The best battles are the ones you don't have to fight." As the indomitable Spirit dropped out of faster-than-light travel in the Kepler system, the crew saw something that had become common across the galaxy. The moment human ships appeared, all hostile activity stopped. Pirates fled, raiders surrendered, and peace returned. The galaxy had learned a simple truth. Humans were the most dangerous predators in space, but they only hunted those who hurt others. As long as you were peaceful, humanity would protect you. But if you caused trouble, you would face the same fate as the Crimson and Nova fleets. In his final log entry for the day, Captain Lee wrote, "The galaxy is finally learning to live in peace. Not because they want to, but because they're afraid of what happens when they don't. Maybe that's not the best way to achieve peace, but it's working. Humanity has become the galaxy's apex predator, and with that power comes the responsibility to use it wisely. We came to the stars not to conquer but to explore, but when others threatened us, they discovered why we were the only species to survive on a death world called Earth. We don't just fight wars, we end them permanently. The age of human expansion has begun, and the galaxy will never be the same." And in the darkness of space, 57 human warships continued their patrols, keeping the peace through the simple threat of their existence. The Crimson and Nova empires had learned the hard way that humanity was not a species to be underestimated. The galaxy was finally at peace, ruled by fear of the humans who had terrified two empires into surrender.